name is Carmen Bowman, and I'm with Edu-Catering, catering education for compliance and culture change. And thank you for joining me for part of what I call a series, Proactive Practices to Prevent Falls. Still at accidents, some more of it comes. Individual nursing home efforts to reduce use of alarms have shown falls actually decrease when alarms are eliminated and replaced. So please hear that, when alarms are replaced with other approaches such as purposeful checks to proactively address resident needs. Boom, what we're talking about here. Adjusting staff to cover times of day when most falls occur. Wise thinking. Also assessing resident routines. Absolutely. Making an individualized environmental or care changes that suit each person. That's a beautiful word, don't you think? If that was you living there, wouldn't you love it if people rearrange things to suit you and your needs? Beautiful. So that purposeful checks to proactively address resident needs is in the regs. Then at 7:43, this is about a person whose assessment doesn't reveal or who does not have a diagnosis of a mental or psychosocial adjustment difficulty, or, bear with me, a documented history of trauma and or post-traumatic stress disorder, does not display a pattern of decreased social interaction or increased withdrawn, angry, or depressive behaviors, unless that person's clinical condition demonstrates that development of such a pattern was unavoidable. I read all that to share this with you. Under observations at that regulation, something we are to observe, or actually surveyors are to observe, demonstration of staff's understanding, responsiveness, and proactive care for resident needs. Again, if we know people, we should know them well. And knowing someone well really includes anticipating, knowing what they're going to need and when, right? And here it is again at this tag as well. And then, believe it or not, tag 600, F600, freedom from abuse, neglect, and exploitation. Wow. So identified nursing home characteristics that could increase risk for abuse include the following list. What I'm trying to show you here is it's a longer list, but one bullet happens to say this: policies operate in the interests of the institution rather than the residents. So characteristics that could increase abuse include policies operate in the interests of the institution rather than the people who live there. So hopefully that gives you a lot of fodder to move in this direction. Regs actually are pushing us to create systems and routines and schedules that match the people who actually live there. Gone are the days of institutional scheduling that don't match anybody, truly. And that will be the key to great care, great life, and reduce falls. So if you would bear with me, please, and try this. I don't know why, it just seems to make a difference. If you would close your eyes, please, and let me ask you this question. Ready? What would we have done differently if we had never invented alarms? No alarms. What would we naturally have done differently? Most people say this: we probably would have checked in with people more often. Why? Because we worry about them. And what did that alarm do? It gave us a false sense of security. Many people have said this in so many different ways. It was our crutch. We thought the alarm was our eyes. But we all learned it was problematic. And what if it wasn't turned on? What if the batteries went dead right then and before a fall, right? There was a lot of culpability there, thinking we could have all those alarms in place, turned on, batteries fresh all the time. So, sure enough, the teams that first started to get rid of alarms in the early 2000s did this very thing. They purposely checked in with people much more often. They would take maybe one neighborhood. We use neighborhood instead of unit to create lovelier home language. But they would take one neighborhood at a time. Maybe they would take one shift at a time. Maybe one team would volunteer to do it first, or maybe because of the particular people who lived on that neighborhood, they went first because they felt, more comfortable not using alarms with those particular people. You can do whatever you want, whatever seems to be right for you and your community. So this has just been so much fun. Many of you maybe have heard different little lists of things to ask residents before you leave them alone. That's the key. Particular questions before you leave someone alone can prevent falls. So maybe you've heard of the 4 Ps or the 5 Ps. One time I heard of the 7 Cs. And so you can do whatever you want. But it just turned out in my journey that I end up teaching the 4 Ps and an E. So let me explain those to you. And we start with pain. You know, even though you might not be a nurse, I'm not a nurse, we can ask a person if they're in pain. Isn't that great? It's not HIPAA protected. So the more we all ask someone, are you in pain? Do you have any pain? How you feeling? We can actually make life better for them right now, get that word to the nurse right now, and potentially even prevent a fall. Isn't that wonderful? So pain is the first one, no matter who you are. Housekeepers, we can all ask if someone's in pain. I just love that about this whole list. Then we talk about personal needs. That's just what I use. And here's why. Sometimes people have used a P for potty. I propose we don't do that. And notice I am not saying toileting, but personal needs really is sort of lingo for the bathroom without saying the bathroom either. So personal needs, in particular, the bathroom. And guess what? Again, any one of us can ask. We don't have to be a CNA to ask. We can say, oh, do you have any pain, Mrs. Smith? Do you need to use the bathroom at all? Just double checking before I go. And we can let the right person know or help get that call light on if we're not able to take them ourselves. By the way, in the other session, we talk about getting more and more people cross-trained as CNAs so that more and more of us can help people to the bathroom. Why? Because a lot of times it's just a better use of our time instead of running around and trying to find someone to help this person use the bathroom. And while we're running around, perhaps they stand up and head that way anyway, and there's the fall. So pain, personal needs, which really means the bathroom, and positioning. Are you comfortable? Are you comfortable in that chair? How long have you been in that chair? Would you like to move over to your recliner or vice versa? Or to the bed? Or would you like to get out of the bed? Is there anything I can do to make you more comfortable? And if not, if someone else needs to do it, again, we turn the call light on or let someone know. Any one of us can ask if someone's comfortable with their positioning. And then the other P is personal items. And so what personal items do you need around you? So that you've got everything you need. God forbid there's something across the room and this person's not able to walk over there, and perhaps that's the fall that we can prevent. We'll talk more about that here in a moment. And then the E, I mentioned we're going to talk a lot more later about engagement, and I am a kind of a stickler on thinking about meaningful engagement, not just busy work, not just being occupied. It has to go deeper for each of us. It has to be meaningful to us. If it's just busy work, guess what? That becomes boring. And we have all the stories to prove it. So the 4 Ps and an E, what we recommend is that each person on your team start to learn these by heart. They're pretty easy. And to start getting in the great habit of learning to ask them before they leave a person alone. Now, predominantly that means in the room. But it could also mean leaving someone in the hallway or at the in the gazebo outside, by the bird aviary, whatever the case might be, where someone is left alone. So this is so much fun to think about on the note of the personal items. Imagine yourself, if you were living in a nursing home or assisted living, what personal items would you need around you? And to start with, we all kind of have a few at the top that would be the same, right? The call light, absolutely. Depending on the bed, sometimes a bed remote, oftentimes a TV remote, and nowadays most people need their phone, right? But keep going. Wouldn't most of us need water? And that's a typical one that we mean to have next to someone at all times. I need Kleenex. Anybody else? I got allergies. And then not only do I need the Kleenex box, but now I need a garbage can near me. And especially, before COVID, but certainly since COVID, now I need some hand sanitizer. So, oh boy. So my nose requires 3 things. How about yours? And then glasses, probably not everybody, but it's probably a lot of people either wear glasses or need reading glasses. Are they nearby? Raise your hand if you need chapstick. I know I would. My daughter would. Some people start to bring up, oh, I need my fuzzy blanket. Someone else starts to bring up, oh, I need my book or my Bible or my journal. Maybe beside water, another kind of drink, maybe a snack for some people. And notice it goes on and on. But find out those details that make a person who they are and what they truly need around them. That is great customer service, period. And then if you can also perhaps prevent a fall because they had what they needed around them, all the better. So now we're going to move into more better practices, as I call them. And we are going to kind of flesh out what each different group of people might be able to do. So we're going to start with the nursing team. If you think of the team, it's nurses and CNAs. What can nurses and CNAs do more as a team? And I've just learned this from others. Some teams have shared with us that maybe the nurses check in with residents, let's say on an odd hour, and the CNAs check in on an even hour, or vice versa, to have some sort of pattern. Now, we read in the regulation, what about every 30 minutes? So that might be another thing to consider. Could that happen every 30 minutes? Maybe not. We got lots of other ideas to share with you, but the nursing team taking it on first, more proactively, a little bit more defined, a little bit different than we've ever done it. And another way to start would be think about the people who live there that you're most worried about. Maybe you can't check in with all people every 30 minutes, but you're gonna make yourselves do it for those that you worry the most about. That is totally understandable as well. And then I want to just think more about nurses, and I'll share my idea with you. But again, if you want to pause and talk about your nurse team, what could nurses do to get more creative? And creative ideas I've heard of are kind of simple in a way, that a nurse would also proactively ask those questions every time they interact with a person, in particular during MedPass. That's when they interact a lot, as well as maybe any kind of treatment. And maybe you have some other ideas. Maybe you are a nurse. What else could nurses do to be more creative? And then similarly, what could CNAs do to be more creative? We know that most of this falls on you, CNAs. We don't want it to, but let's just pause for a moment and think about, are you taking advantage of everything you could do? And so, for instance, I've had CNAs tell me, I don't think we're as good as we could be at making sure people have around them what they need, those personal items. And I appreciated that. If nothing else, then to get better at that, please do. That can be all of us, but CNAs, if you aren't asking that either, that's something to consider adding. That's very proactive to make quality of life better and avoid those falls. Thank you, and we'll see you on the next video.